You said something earlier that really struck me. I talked to you about an idea I have for a play I'd like to write, and you were very encouraging, which was nice. And then you um, asked me what my agenda was in writing this play. It hit me in many ways. One of which was it made me think about other times in life I've had an agenda. A big one, I guess, is would be making me feel okay, making me look good. The name dropping we mentioned in the books. I'm fortunate enough to have met lots of interesting people in my life, and something you've noticed and other people have noticed. I can mention to make myself look better or feel better. With writing this play, I'm aware, I guess, of an agenda to prove myself.
An agenda is a kind of bias, isn't it, I would say. So I guess you can have political agendas, but in this context, we're talking about personality agendas. And a personality agenda is a need of the personality being played out within your life, within your relationships or your actions, what you do. So my question to you really about your project was, is this art for art's sake, which has a kind of purity to it? It's simply creativity coming without any agenda, but just wanting to create something. As opposed to if there is what you've explained, a need from the personality to prove itself. To me, that kind of taints the purity of that clear, unagendered, artistic need to express itself. It comes with this overlay, and the overlay of personality, there's a tension in it. If it comes from sheer creativity without that agenda, it's really coming from a still point, really, and the still point of a background of just love and energy. So the way I see it is an agenda is like a kind of constellation, a kind of contracted form. It's got energy in it, but it's the energy of contraction and of hurt. In this example, perhaps, a hurt that you haven't felt valid enough, maybe, and whatever that is in your history, and most people have some of that, from their parents or their background, that then informs the art. And for me, it kind of it inhibits the natural expression of the art. Now, as I'm saying this, I imagine some people say, well, some art is written from great anger, for example, and that's what gives it its power. I'm not saying that there isn't a place for agendas and anger and emotion in art. The whole of punk music is angry music, and that's a kind of form of art, and it's valuable to people. There was a whole movement in the 60s of angry playwrights, John Osborne, and this is all enriching society and culture and everything. So that's all what it is. But we're talking about agendas within a very specific kind of framework, which is of this discussion of waking up and what waking up means. So life beyond personality means leaving agendas behind. Why? Because agendas are part and parcel of what personality is. So the agendas come from personality. If there is no longer identification with that personality, I would say what can happen is that there may be the awareness arising of let's call it of an agenda, which is like a sort of force that may want to have things go this way or that way. But instead of being identified with that, there is this kind of awareness that falls on that. And you can almost, if that occurred, you could almost laugh at it. I mean, there's this distance that just says, oh, there's nothing here that judges that. But there's also nothing here that aligns itself with that. So when I say here, what do I mean? I guess I mean The choiceless awareness, the consciousness, or the big C, however you want to put it. So that disidentification manifests in that way. Now, having said that, I'm trying to think of an agenda, and I honestly can't think of one, but perhaps people who know me would say there were. Okay, you've got one, right?
Well, I think, share your teaching or share your understandings of the world, and to teach people who are interested.
Sure, right. Now, for me, that's not an agenda in the way that we talked about it. Well, some people might say there is an agenda there. If that wanting to share it, now this goes back to your original point about your project. If my wanting to share this has an agenda, it means in some way I would be needing to prove myself. What I'm interested in is this connecting with people who are ready, and if that happens, that's lovely. And there is a fulfillment because there is a cycle of me being inspired to say these words and share the experience that I've had of this, and that connecting with someone, that is connection, that's community, that's love in the end. That's what I'm interested in. So for me, there isn't an agenda in this. So yeah, I feel agendas from this point of view are a force that comes in from personality, and the creativity is affected. It moves from non-doing into doing. The agenda turns non-doing into doing. There's a reason for it that is other than just art or sharing for sharing's sake. The reason is provided by the personality and all its history and all its wound and its suffering. And it needs to try and put that right, and it needs to say, I am special, or I am clever. So what is this all about? Why do we need to talk about agendas or know about our agendas? Well, it all comes back to you ain't going to get free of identification with personality without knowing your personality. So my take on this is the more you know your personality, the more the awareness sees, that's my agenda. I've had that before. I can see what that's trying to do. I'm trying to prove myself, right? Mm. So those sort of things going on, when there's a light on them and you're aware of them, they lose their power. Because immediately you've undercut the momentum of the energy that wants to prove itself, because you've seen through it. So that's a microcosm of what happens in waking up. You imagine that applied to the whole personality. It's seen through. You can't be pulled into it anymore. You're no longer in this dividing line where you're remembering that you're not it. You're forgetting. You're back in your personality. That wavering back and forward. There comes a point where it's seen so clearly that you cannot go back. You cannot go back into it. And it's such a beautiful moment and a beautiful blessing. Of course, it can be accompanied by a lot of pain, and there's a lot of seeing things you might not want to see. But in essence, that's the beautiful outcome of this. So that's why we're talking about agendas, because it's really a way of saying losing the big agenda is personality itself, in a sense, and seeing through that is what waking up is all about.